All right, welcome into New York City and Writer's Block. I'm your host, Bill Reiter. Tony Dungy is going to be on the show. A very special second interview with Adrian Broner off his loss to Manny Pacquiao, and a deep dive on the best player in the NBA whose greatness may not add up to what you think it does. It all starts right now. It would be hard to find an NBA fan, writer, player, or connoisseur who doesn't think at the moment James Harden and the stunning stats he has put up makes him the best player in the NBA, particularly with LeBron James injured. Let me just give you a few of the facts that have defined a remarkable season to date. He now has 20 straight games, Harden, with 30 or more points. The only other player to have accomplished that statistical feat is Wilt Chamberlain, Houston 14-6 over that run, and more incredible, or as incredible, 3 of those 20 games, the Beard has scored 50 or more. 12 of those 20 games, 40 or more. He's averaging almost 42 points, almost 8 rebounds, 8.5 assists, 2.1 steals. It's really impressive, but there's a giant game-changing but here. None of it is going to add up to the kind of postseason success that superstardom in the NBA is supposed to give the team that superstar plays for. And this is a fixation we get into too often in sports, not just the NBA. It's true in football. It's true in baseball. We often focus on the wrong stats, become mesmerized by the wrong kind of greatness, and fail to realize until it's too late that's not what we should have been paying attention to in the first place. Let me give you an example from just a couple years ago before we go a deeper dive in history. And I've been an NBA MVP voter. Russell Westbrook's MVP from 2 years ago will be looked at as a joke 10 years from now. Even now, there are voters who voted for Russ who are correctly second-guessing that decision when, for only the second time in the history of the game, Westbrook averaged a triple-double over the course of the season. Awesome. Incredible. He was also incredibly inefficient, and more importantly, his Thunder team failed to get out of the first round. Won only a single game in that postseason. Why? Because fans and players and media guys like me, maybe fans like you, fixated on the wrong thing. Let me give you a few historical examples that I think speak to this and why we're looking at the wrong things as we assess Harden and then make that leap that we shouldn't be making, that the Rockets are for some reason contenders. DiMaggio, this actual one drives me crazy. In 1941, that 56-game hit streak that we still celebrate. But do you realize he shouldn't have been the MVP? Because that was the year that Ted Williams, who was statistically superior in almost every advanced metrics category that we now know is a way to assess greatness, also hit 406. Think about that. The year that Ted Williams broke the 400 barrier, he did not win the MVP because Joe DiMaggio, great player though he is, happened to get a hit in 56 straight games. It was a fixation on a stat rather than looking at the bigger and broader picture. Barry Bonds had 73 home runs for the Giants one year, and they had the 3rd worst record in baseball that year. Didn't make the playoffs. Ichiro, 262 hits, 3rd worst record in baseball that year. Here's one that's close to my heart. It drives me crazy, and I don't love the consecutive hit streak stat that people fixate on baseball. I'm a Cubs fan. Jerome Walton won the Rookie of the Year back in '89 because he had a 30-game rookie hitting streak, a record, but his teammate Dwight Smith was a markedly better baseball player. We fixate on the absolute wrong things. And here's an uncomfortable truth about Harden as well. He has never translated his excellence in the regular season to the postseason. There's no reason to think that's going to change now. And there's some ironies in the fact that today is the anniversary of Kobe's 81-point game, a reminder that the game has changed. The Russ style, the Kobe style, back in the day, the Jordan style, a ball-dominant player who takes too many shots and doesn't move the ball, that doesn't translate to greatness. The real stat that we should be celebrating, the real thing we should be fixating on, which we will later in the show, is that Klay Thompson last night scored 44 points in 27 minutes of basketball, made 10 straight threes. Why is that more significant than Harden? Because Klay is just as likely to take a step back, not take a lot of shots, be criticized for having an off night. It's about depth and selflessness mixed with excellence, not just excellence. Here's another stat that we should be focused on and looking at and remembering. As great as Harden has been, The goal is to win an NBA championship, not to pad your own stats like Kobe did. I know it's sacrilegious in his final game at Staples Center. I was there. Now what Russ did a couple years ago where he got his hardware but never built a team that could even compete in the postseason. And now with this Rockets team that has a celebration of the glory of the individual but will add up to almost nothing in the postseason. They're not making a Western Conference Finals. They're not the second best team in the NBA. Yes, their offense is exciting behind their exciting offensive superstar. They are 27th, the Rockets, in defensive efficiency rating. In this century, only 2 teams have won an NBA championship without being in the top 10 in defensive efficiency rating. Last year's Warriors, who have Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, you know the gang, and finished 11th, and all the way back in 2001 when the Lakers had the 21st defense in the NBA because Shaq just didn't care in the regular season in the midst of their three-peat. So here's the reality. Here's the truth. Just like 2 years ago with Westbrook, this is a remarkable NBA fan story. Harden is an absolute machine, but he's not breaking the NBA. He's not rewriting how it works. He's not recalibrating how you go about trying to stop somebody. He's putting up big numbers like Russ did 2 years ago on a team that doesn't play very good defense, that doesn't have the weapons to compete against, forget the Warriors, a big chunk of the rest of the NBA in a 7-game series when the game slows down, defenses are better, and you can focus in on one guy night after night after night. James Harden, great story, but don't be seduced again by the siren song of the stats. There's a deeper reality, and it's this. The Rockets are fun, but they are not contenders. Let's talk some NFL. Tony Dungy, 2-time Super Bowl champion. You know who Tony Dungy is. Coach is going to join me. We're going to hit a whole bunch of topics as we get ready for the Super Bowl on CBS in a couple weeks. It's coming up here in Writer's Block in just a bit. Coach, congratulations on the book, and thanks so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Bill. It's great to be on with you. Kind of fitting for a book on teamwork to come out right around the Super Bowl, and we've seen 2 great teams end up getting there. So it's going to be a fun couple of weeks for sure.
It really is. And I hate to start with the officiating question, but I feel like it's got to be asked. I just wanted, you're a 2-time, you won a Super Bowl as a player and as a coach. You've been around the game a long time. What was your reaction to the officiating and what I think most of us agree is that blown call in that Saints game?
No, and you see it time and time again in the fourth quarter of playoff games. Officials don't want to make the call to decide the game. So this was a case, though, where it was absolutely obvious. This wasn't a close borderline call. It was an obvious pass interference that needed to be called. And it's just a shame because it's going to taint the whole Super Bowl. You're going to have people feeling like, well, the Rams shouldn't have been there anyway. If the Patriots win, they didn't beat the team that deserved to be there. You've got everybody in New Orleans upset. It's just really, really unfortunate. But it happens. It does, and I think we have to move past it.
Coach, if the NFL asked your perspective, your advice on whether they should leave the rules how they are, open up pass interference to replay, have some other approach, what would you suggest?
Well, I'm not a replay person at all. When we first went down this road, when I was still coaching years ago, I said, you're going to open up Pandora's box. We all know that officiating, there is human error. If you try to correct some, and that was the point. Well, let's just get the major calls. Let's get the big calls right. Where do you draw the line? And yes, you could correct that call in the game, and it was a big play, no question about it. But there were probably 10 other calls during the course of the game that if they had been corrected, maybe they changed the flow of the game. I just don't think we want a 6-hour game where we're looking at every single call and trying to get everything right. As much as it pains you when this happens, I think it's part of the game.
So for the next 12 days, at least in the sports world, every eye is going to be on Atlanta. We're all heading there. The focus will be there. It'll be the epicenter of the sports world. For you, when you look back at your career, how is it different for a player approaching the next 12 days, like an Aaron Donald, versus a head coach, as a man who's been through that experience on both ends of the equation?
Well, I know when I played in Super Bowl 13 and you're focused on your job and your assignment, what am I going to have to do? Who am I covering? What are the big plays that are going to be possible in my little realm of things? And then you want to take in everything. You want to take in all the events, everything that goes along with it, and enjoy the journey. but you're really focused on getting yourself ready. As a coach, you're looking at the entire team. What do I have to do to keep the environment right? How do I practice and make sure these guys are sharp, but I don't overwork them? How do I give them enough freedom and flexibility and leeway to enjoy Atlanta, enjoy the environment, enjoy the week, but not have them lose focus? And you think about a lot of different things. And it's a stressful week on the coaches. I think the players enjoy it much, much more.
Coach, for you, when you look back at your experiences, what is your favorite, your ultimate, that Super Bowl memory for you that is seared most happily in your memory?
Well, I remember the first one that we won as a player, and it was so exciting to know that you're on top of the world. You started out that summer with a goal, and you were able to accomplish it. As a coach, I think my favorite moment was after the game was over. They're building the victory podium. We're up there. We're getting ready to do the post game with Jim Nance, and I was just looking out over the whole environment. You say half the stadium is empty because the Bears fans have left and it's just Indianapolis fans. And then our players and coaches and wives and families, they're all on the field kind of celebrating, hugging each other, and the fans are there. And you realize this was a victory not just for our organization, but for the city of Indianapolis, the state of Indiana, Colts fans, and all the families. And you really do feel a sense of, boy, this is something special that we've done for the whole community.
You know, I am a Bears fan, and that's the first time I've ever heard that moment described in a way that made me feel joy. So,
No, it was very, very special, and for me, of course, Lovie Smith on the other sideline. We worked together for 5 years in Tampa. I had so much respect for them, and just knowing that the two of us were there together. One of us was going to win. One of us was going to come in second. And it was such a monumental day for just African American coaches, the city of Indianapolis. There were a lot of kind of backstories in that one.
yeah, no doubt. As we look forward to this upcoming Super Bowl, Bill Belichick and his staff put together a scheme, at least in the first half, that did what felt like the impossible. They shut down Patrick Mahomes in the first half of that game. What do you think Belichick and his staff are going to do, need to do, to try to have similar success against a very good Rams offense?
Well, that's the challenge of playing the Patriots. You can't look at the last game you played against them. You can't look at their last 4 games and say this is what they're going to do. They're going to come out with a completely unique plan. And what we always told our teams, you have to weather that first quarter. We don't know what they're going to do. It's going to be unique. Then we'll figure it out, and then we've got to zero in on that. And I thought Andy Reid and his team did a good job. They were flustered. They were overwhelmed in the first half. Second half, they played much better. But that's what Sean McVay is going to have to do. Hey, how are we going to get through those first 10 minutes, 12 minutes when we're not quite sure? Are they going to blitz us? Are they going to be 3-4? Are they going to play nickel defense? How are they going to play us? And then offensively, what's it going to be New England's package? Is it going to be hurry up, receivers throwing the ball quick? Is it going to be trying to slow the game down and run it? And so it's going to be a game of adjustments as the game goes along.
Yeah, and you hit on that. We saw Sony Michel, who's been spectacular in this postseason. Particularly, I mean, not even for a rookie. He is a rookie, but he's just been spectacular. Gronk looked unguardable at times in that game. We all know what Tom Brady's about. If you're the Rams' defensive coaching staff, what is the game plan you're trying to put together for the first part of the game?
You know, I've worked with Rodney Harrison for 10 years on NBC's Football Night in America, and Rodney has always told me the way you have to play the Patriots is you have to pressure up inside, you have to be able to get pressure without blitzing, and you have to be able to play man-to-man coverage to take away the quick, easy, fast throw. Well, that is what the Rams defense is built around. Pressure inside with Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh. They play man coverage. They're built for it. Now, what are the adjustments New England's going to make? Who are the matchups that they're going to favor? Is it going to be Gronk on the safety man? Is it going to be James White on the linebackers? New Orleans had a lot of success with Alvin Kamara on the Rams linebackers. And, New England will have the same opportunity. So it's going to be that. But I think the Rams defense is really built to play against the Patriots offense.
Coach, the four quarterbacks that were remaining entering this past weekend, you've got two in Breeze and Brady, who whenever they step away from the game, not just Hall of Famers, but will be regarded as highly as many of the guys who have played that position. Patrick Mahomes has celebrated a young player maybe we've ever seen. Goff's kind of interesting. He has been criticized. He has been praised. There's a difference of opinion about him out in the sort of sports talk, media, fan world. When you look at Jared Goff in this moment, in this game, what's your confidence level in him at the quarterback position?
He's going to be the wild card to me. He's played very well throughout the season. In some of the biggest moments, he didn't play that well. Their game in Chicago that they lost, it was cold weather, and he didn't play well. The beginning of this championship game, he didn't play great. He got it going and made some key throws down the stretch. But that's going to be what people are talking about. Can Jared Goff match Tom Brady? We know Tom Brady's going to make great throws and big plays in the big moments. In the huge moment that they need in that fourth quarter drive, if they're down 3 points, will Jared Goff be able to make the plays that they need?
All right, the way too early, and the first of many questions toward you, the way too early Super Bowl prediction. I know it's early, but at this point, who do you think has the edge?
I just like the Patriots and their experience in big games. I think they will have a little different game plan they'll throw at them. It's hard to beat a Bill Belichick team when they have 2 weeks to prepare. They're going to need a monumental effort from a couple of key individuals. I think Coach Belichick always takes away your number one weapon. So I would look at him really throwing a net around Aaron Donald. So that means Ndamukong Suh, if they're going to win, I think he has to have a monster game. And then the same thing offensively. He'll do what it takes to slow down Todd Gurley. He's had Brandon Cooks on his team. He knows what Cooks can do. I think he'll take him away. I think it's up to the other players to really step up. Robert Woods, maybe C.J. Anderson, maybe some of the tight ends. But the other offensive weapons are going to have to step up. And then Ndamukong Suh, Dante Fowler, some of those other rush men are going to have big games because I don't see Aaron Donald getting single blocked a whole lot in this one.
Coach, last question for you. I'm having the pleasure to visit with you from my office in Brooklyn. I'm surrounded by books. I'm the guy that puts his books in alphabetical order by author, so the D's are right here. I'll have the soul of a team here very soon. What can you tell us about the book and why this was something you wanted to dedicate some of your time toward?
Yeah, I've been asked by so many people over the last 10 years since I stopped coaching. Tell us about building a team. Tell us about creating a championship unit. Tell us about fostering teamwork. And I give a lot of those speeches, so I thought I would put it together in book form, talk about the principles of building a cohesive unit, a strong group, whether it's a football team, whether it's a business, whether it's a family, any organization. How do you get people to come together and function at their best as a group? And I think people are going to enjoy some of the principles in this book.
Coach, really enjoyed the conversation. I'll try to say hello to you in Atlanta. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, and God bless.
What is someone going to tell me about my jump shot that I can't fix at this point? Unless it's Reggie Miller or Ray Allen, I don't know who I'm supposed to listen to. Larry Bird? Steve Kerr, I'll listen to Steve. Steve shot 45%. But other than that, it's like, I've done this job for a long enough time. I know what I need to do.
After last night, I'm not sure Klay Thompson even has to listen to those guys, and I'm the world's biggest Larry Bird fan. We mentioned this at the top of the show. As much as we focused on Harden's grandiose numbers, and he's been awesome, it's the things that are going on in Golden State, a little quietly, a little bit overshadowed by the beard, that just remind us of the obvious story in the NBA. The Warriors are going to win the whole thing. Today, that story is about Klay Thompson. You saw him there. We're going to go inside the numbers on why he doesn't need advice from anybody when it comes to his jump shot. We'll start with the number 27. It's amazing. Klay needed just 27 minutes last night to drop 44 points on the Lakers in a 130-111 beatdown. Klay did not even step on the floor in the fourth quarter. It's not fair. Next up, the number 10. That included hitting in that game for Klay Thompson 10 consecutive three-point shots. That tied the NBA mark for consecutive threes in a game without a miss. He did it from all over. Every single imaginable three-pointer you can hit, he hit it. Next up, the number 14 on Inside the Numbers. By the way, Klay Thompson also holds the record for most three-pointers made in a game, which is 14. He completed that feat when he dropped 52 points in 26 minutes versus the Bulls last season. He also set the record for most threes and a half in this game, by the way, with 10. He is literally one of the 5, this is conservative, best shooters in the history of the game. He's not even the best shooter on his team in an era where shooting is pretty important to success. 37 is next up. Just another record held by Klay Thompson. It's the most points scored in a quarter, 37 in a quarter. 37 against the Kings in 2015 when he went 13 of 13 from the field in the third quarter of that game. Here's a good one. How about 1.100? Let's go a little advanced metrics for you. Monday night's effective field goal percentage of 1.100 by Klay is the best mark in a game in the history of the NBA with a minimum of 15 field goal attempts. That means that's the best shooting night in the history of basketball last night. And finally, 24.6 over 8 games in January. Klay is averaging 24.6 points per game. His response to the criticisms, and you saw his other response, that he's not having the year that he needs to have. So let's just try to go through this. Boogie Cousins returns from injury and is the best version of himself immediately. Klay Thompson is breaking records. Steph Curry is the best shooter of all time. Kevin Durant's a former MVP and two-time Finals MVP. Yeah, the focus on Harden and the Rockets is cute. They're not going to win a single game against the Warriors if they happen to face them in the postseason this year. Klay Thompson, and this is the other part about greatness, right? And I'm not mad at Harden. What's he going to do? There's no Chris Paul. You got to do what you got to do. But Klay is this talent who's willing to be the 4th or 5th option on his team sometimes. That selflessness meets greatness. Kyrie Irving is a really important part of the equation of greatness. Speaking of greatness, Hall of Fame going to announce its inductees in about a half an hour. We'll have you covered, of course, here on CBS Sports HQ. Here's a little riff. I don't want to go too far on it because Mariano Rivera is one of the greatest of all time, one of the classiest of all time. But since Ted Williams and Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb and Greg Maddux and every other Hall of Famer never got a unanimous vote, it is going to drive me crazy, even though I'm in New York as a non-Yankees fan, if the first time it ever happens that a guy's the unanimous Hall of Famer is a closer. No offense to closers. Grew up on Lee Smith. But come on. The tradition may be stupid, but it's the tradition. For the first time in a long time, I hope one of these grumpy old men voters do the wrong thing and don't vote for somebody they're supposed to because it can't be a Yankee closer. It just feels wrong. Adrian Broner, we're going to do our special interview with him today. We had him last week. We're going to do our special interview, air quotes, intentional, tomorrow. Right now, the guys are taking back over here on CBS Sports HQ. In fact, I'm going to be on with them, so stay here. I'll see you in a second. Sportsline coming up in 30 minutes to help you figure out every move you got to make. Thank you for hanging out on Writer's Block. Thank you to Tony Dungy. We're back tomorrow. Hope you're back with us, 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific.